when do we create an attribute set? Now, there's good value in talking about what is an attribute set first. Attribute set contains a list of attributes that describe a product. So we might have very disparate types of products. So I've talked about previously, we might have a shirt. We might even sell a generator on the same store. The attributes that are used to describe the generator are going to be mostly wildly different than the attributes used to describe a shirt. There will be some overlap, which is fine. So an attribute set basically narrows down those attributes to only the ones that are really relevant to that product. If a attribute does not have a value, it will not be shown in the layered navigation. So you don't have to worry about that. So, or actually, I believe also on the specifications page, specifications tab. So all that to say, I recommend creating a attribute set per relevant, what makes sense. So obviously you can go a little bit crazy on this, or you can basically just have one attribute set which has all the options. That's not necessarily ideal either. So it's kind of a balancing act, but generally speaking, just find the categories for each product that are for the general product categories that you have, types of products that you have. Create an attribute set for each one of those. One thing to note is that when you create a new attribute, you have to manually go through and add it to each attribute set. It does not automatically happen. Now, if your developer creates it themselves, it will be automatically added, or it can be added to specific attribute sets at the time of that creation. But for you as a content administrator to do that, it does not actually automatically propagate out to all attribute sets. Thus, let's take a look at how to do this. If you're still watching these videos, I'm hopeful that you are really enjoying them. You might be interested in a free website analysis that we do. It's between 45 and 50 pages, and it really digs out a lot of questions or concerns that often are had that might not even be known immediately. SEO, user experience, merchandising, performance, security, all of that is covered on this report. We do it for free. Let's talk. So we come down to stores, we have attributes, and we have attribute set. So below products, so we just created our manufacturer attribute, come into our attribute set. Obviously, if we were launching a new product type like generators, as my example goes, we would go create a new attribute set, and we would then name it. So let's call this generators. We can pull in from an existing list. So we have default as the normal one, but we can select one other. Obviously, we have to pull in from another list. So I'm going to leave this as default. Because these are like the basic ones. So we can create a new group, which is basically one of those like accordions here on this page. So we can drop down here, and these would be like attribute groups. And it definitely was recommended. It will make your life a little bit easier as you create these to have these grouped up a little bit. So then we will drag over, let's see here, my manufacturer. I'm going to put this at the top. Probably don't want to do this. Status and name are probably more important, but we're going to save this here. We saved it. Now let's just, for the sake of posterity, we also see that I added manufacturer here. We go into edit our Joust duffel bag, which I already created, and we see our manufacturers here at the top. Notice this global note here. We also have store view. So in other words, when it's set to global, we are able to, this value changes in the global scope. However, we can then change, like when it says store view here, we change this in the store view scope. Now, where this matters is when we have this scope listing here, these that are grayed out basically are unchangeable, but we can go down to the store view. So I'm going to switch down to the store view, and I'm going to set this, we can uncheck this value, use a default value. Now, this is a little tricky, as historically speaking, there has been a Magento bug that occasionally unchecks this. And remember, the store view is what is browsed on the front end. So when it is browsed on the front end here, the store view is, this value may be something different, and thus it is shown to the customer or to the visitor. So generally speaking, it's one thing to think about is if you are unable to, if you're changing this all day long and it's just not working, nothing's sticking, then, I mean, on the front end, when you go view this product on the front end, then it might be because use default value somehow got unchecked. And there's a couple of ways that can happen. I think it's tied kind of back to a Magento bug. check that value and you're good to go. Now you'll notice this, we are in the default store view and this is set to global here. So I change this here and I can hop over, watch this. I change it to default, DeWalt. Why do I keep saying default? We set it here. Jump over into Spanish and you'll notice that DeWalt stays the same. See, now watch this. I am in Spanish and I'm going to change this to something, save it. Move to my other list, to my default store view. Oh, that's why, because we're talking about default store view. Okay, yeah, so jump over here, we're gonna save it, and we see that this inherits the parent value, whereas Spanish has overridden that. It has its own value at that Spanish scope. So keep this in mind. This is a little bit tricky to think about sometimes when it comes to managing these attribute sets. However, the general idea of an attribute set, and that was a bit of a rabbit trail there, is to focus on maintainability for individual or unique products. Great work on that.